Good afternoon, everybody. As you may be able to tell from my small accent, I'm from London, Global Head of Circular Economy Solutions here at SAP. And yeah, thank you all so much for joining today. We've been on this journey with the Global Design Forum for the last 5 years or so now, really exploring these system solutions and how we drive these collaborations to engage the 160 million designers that Sean talked about at the beginning. So yeah, look forward to joining the conversation and building the discussion today.
Hello, everyone. Is this working? No? Hello, everyone. This is working now. Hi, my name is Jared Richardson. I'm the VP of Design at Colgate-Palmolive. And I guess, sorry I'm late on stage. Looking forward to the conversation. I lead all brands, all geographies, for all of our products around the world. Mostly the genesis of what I do is in packaging design. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Cora. We're excited to be here today.
Hey everyone, I'm Alistair Bramley. I am a Senior Director of Regenerative Futures at PepsiCo. So we're basically a team that uses system thinking and design thinking to help PepsiCo deliver its PEP positive goals, which are around the usual suspects: plastic, carbon, water, and people's livelihoods as well.
Hi everybody, I'm very excited to be here with you all. I am Carmen Gama. I'm the Director of Circular Design at Eileen Fisher. For those who are not familiar with Eileen Fisher, we are a women's wear clothing brand that we design very simple system dressing for women, and then we focus on like sustainable materials. My job there is to figure out what to do with all of the damage inventory that comes back through our take back program. That's it.
And hi, my name is Cora. I lead global packaging and sustainability for Colgate-Palmolive. So that's all of the packaging engineering worldwide, as well as our plastics and packaging sustainability strategy.
That's great. And I think we're going to kick it off with a presentation by Jared and Greg. And the clicker is right on the table there if you need it.
Awesome, thank you. Cool. Is this working? Cool. Hi, everyone. So really excited to be here today. Again, I'm Jared Richardson, VP of Design. I'm here with Cora today. I'm going to give him a proper intro in a second because he's the real rock star today. We have a very, I think, an awesome story to share with you today about the design of the recyclable tube. But before we do that, I'm going to just tell some stories to set the stage, set the context of who we are as Colgate-Palmolive. Because I think it's important to understand when we're talking about sustainable impact at scale by design, like what we actually mean by that. Okay, so Colgate-Palmolive, we were founded in 1806, and that's 217 years ago, for those of you who are really good at math. We were founded originally as a soap and candle company. Shortly thereafter, we added toothpaste to the mix. I'd like to think that we were born good because our founder, William Colgate, was a philanthropist, right? He wanted to bring health and health products to the masses. So we're extremely democratic. Those of you who went to design school, like I did, you're told to design for a specific target, and you're told that if you mean everything, you mean nothing. Well, actually, I think the opposite is true of Colgate. We are potentially, I think, the most democratic brand on the planet, and with that comes awesome responsibility. So about 100 years ago, so 1930s-ish, we started to branch out into developing and underserved emerging markets, such as India, such as Brazil, so highly populated countries. And that set us on the path to being the most highly penetrated and highly used brand on the planet. All right, so this number behind me, 62%, that is the number of households that has a brand Colgate product in it today, right? So that's that's incredible, don't you think? Like, that's almost 2/3 of homes on the planet right now have a product that has a Colgate logo on it. So I think that's like insanely amazing. We're a company of 34,000 people, so that's big, but not that big when you're kind of thinking about the kind of scale and the responsibility that we have. We do about $18 billion a year as of last year. And while I think that's important, and what I've come to learn is that money and profit are not bad things. This is necessary to drive sustainable change, right? And as a designer, I've had to learn that the hard way. Like without having a durable financial engine underneath, nothing else is possible, right? So that's been a real big learning for me. 206 are the amount of brands that we have. Around 50 of those are oral care brands. So you can imagine how important like an innovation like a recyclable tube is to us. And then lastly, 200 plus, that's the number of countries that we are in globally. So when we're talking about impact, massive responsibility and massive impact. That's around about the same amount of countries as the Olympics, by the way. Changing gears a little bit, this is a plant in Burlington, New Jersey. So we lead the world in LED certified buildings. So that's certified across the 4 categories of carbon, waste, water, and energy. And why that's important is that we do this inside those buildings. Does anyone know what this number, let's have some fun today. Does anyone know what this number is? It's a big number. Guess, any guesses? Just shout it out, don't be shy. Please, help me. Help me help you. Close. So this is the sum total of all of our factories around the world. This is the number of tubes of toothpaste that are made per minute. Per minute. Nailed it? Okay, per minute. Like, and the fastest is we have one line that runs 1,000 per minute. That's the fastest. Our average is about 500, but still pretty impressive, I think. And so think about the kind of responsibility that was on the other end of these tubes, right? This is carrying a healthcare product, right? That billions of people use every day, often, hopefully, more than once a day. So the responsibility to getting this right and making this sustainable is awesome for us. So we're really proud of the progress that we've made, and our progress is driven by our purpose, and that is we are imagining a healthier future for all the people, their pets, and our planet. And that drives our sustainability and social impact strategy. And really, when you think about, because we're in so many homes, the responsibility to create a better future and healthier future for all is there. And that is driving our plastics and sustainability strategy. You can see what I'm doing. I'm kind of starting out wide and I'm coming in. I'm going to land on a case study here in a second. So the first pillar there is to source responsibly. All right, so that is where we are making sure that we are working with the right suppliers, with the right partners, with the right amount of transparency, the right certifications, so that we know that what we're putting into our product is on value, no risk for us. Second pillar is delivering efficient and beneficial design. This is when we're trying to take plastic out of our design. Actually, taking plastic out of our products is good. Out of our packaging is good for business. It's also in this platform is where we have our new product formats, right? So that might be our durables, essentially things that are new. This is our innovation platform. The third there is how we have recast the mindset, and that's moving from a linear mindset to a circular mindset, and that's really at the core of our strategy. And the fourth there is our position as leaders is to drive transparency, drive change, communicate learning, inspire others, and always lead with our values and our purpose. And that strategy drives our sustainability targets. So on the left there, no unnecessary or problematic packaging. That essentially means we are responsible, or we take accountability for not contaminating the recycling stream. The middle there is eliminating 1/3 of virgin plastic. We do that in 2 ways. We reduce overall plastic usage, and then we mix that with recycled content when we need to. And overall, leading to 2025, we will reduce, all of our packaging will be recycled, reused, or compostable. A couple of, I think, really interesting sustainability initiatives. I think hopefully something that you take away today is, yes, we have a flagship case study or innovation that we're super proud of that is world-changing, and Greg's going to tell you about that in a second. But this is not one size fits all. This is not a silver bullet. We have to experiment in lots of different places to get this right, because we are not standing still. We're not waiting for the world's next innovation to come. You know, we have to keep moving forward because we have billions of people on the other end of that equation relying on us to deliver product to them. Okay, so the first there is Palmolive dish, not super sexy. That is just pulling from the circular economy to create recycled plastic, right? But it is, the point here is this is for another really, really big brand of ours, right? So the scale and impact, really important. Where we do get into some more interesting things, we're looking at new materials, such as bamboo for our toothbrushes. We are tapping into the existing recycling streams or established recycling streams like aluminum, as I would say in my country, aluminium. That's a mouthwash bottle. We are looking at different business models, such as the bottom left. That is a replaceable head for a durable toothbrush. Just think razors and blades model. We are leaning into upcycled material made from fruit waste with Palmolive Up. And then lastly, on the bottom right there, that is the Tom's recyclable tube. That is actually our launch of our recyclable tube was with our Naturals brand Tom's. Okay, so kind of gives you hopefully a little bit of some context, some setting. And now it is my great pleasure to welcome up Cora to the stage. Greg is a legend in the industry. He's a rock star, and I'm honored to be on stage with him.
Thanks a lot. Let me get this guy. I don't know where to click here. All right. So our goal when we set out to work on the recyclable tube was to convert the entire tube as a packaging format to be recyclable in practice and at scale, and at global scale. We looked at this through 3 lenses. So the first was to target a recycling stream that was already in practice and at scale, not to create our own or try to create our own. And we chose the number 2 HDPE bottle stream. Also viewing it through the lens of user experience, both of the product and the package, and ensuring that this could be produced today in the near term as well in a economic global way, because we do business, as Jared mentioned, all around the world. And for reasons I'll explain later, wanted to drive an industry transformation, because even though we are a little less than half the toothpaste market, we are not big enough to drive the entire tube market, so we needed to invite others to join us on this journey. So squeeze tubes as a packaging format are one of the most ubiquitous formats they are, especially for sticky, gooey products. They're simply the most efficient way to get those products into your mouth or on your body. For a number of reasons, but most importantly from a design perspective, they're not recyclable in practice and at scale. One of the main reasons is most toothpaste tubes had a layer of aluminum foil in the middle of it, sandwiched between different grades of plastic, which were impossible for recyclers to separate. So we knew we needed to engineer that material out of the product. And globally, that's about 20 billion a year that were not entering the circular economy in any reasonable or large scale. So in about 2014, we initiated the project. The gentleman over to the right was Dr. Jun Wong was the material science driving this, and then the team with him there from environmental science, packaging engineering, project management, because it took a team to do this. And we spent 5 years of R&D on the project. And first was finding a solution that, as I mentioned, was in practice and at scale. We tried a number of different things, and we landed on number 2 bottle plastic. We landed on a stream to get these tubes into other bottles, not into deck material or into pipe, which is, not bad, but we wanted them back into packaging. And the challenge is HDP is rigid, it's not that squeezable, so we spent a lot of that time engineering these materials in different layers so that it would look and it would feel like the tube that billions of people use every day. We had to reduce the barriers of how to let this format enter the circular economy, so it had to be as invisible as possible. And a solid year of that R&D program was to get the flavor barrier the same as what we have today. Because a lot of people have been brushing their teeth their entire life with the same brand, and it couldn't taste different. So from a design perspective, we were able to achieve, and there is a continuous improvement aspect to this, but it looks, it feels, it squeezes like a toothpaste tube. It tastes like the toothpaste you're used to. It's compatible with one of the biggest streams for plastic. We were the first tube to get recognition by, that's a recycling trade group. The lead scientist on this project, he sat on the technical committee, at the APR for about 2 years before he even brought the project to them to ensure that he understood how to design something that is valuable feedstock to recyclers, shifting the relationship between brands and recyclers for one that could be contentious to one that was built on trust and collaboration. And you don't need to rinse or cut it, and we've got data to support that. I explained it. I think these guys, if this video plays, can explain it better. And it can't, but okay. You could Google that later. It's 2 Australian toothpaste tubes explaining what we did. And it's really, really cute. I will not try to do an Australian accent, and no, Jared's a Kiwi, so it wasn't him. Design's part 1. Design's not enough. We wanted to lead an industry transformation. We knew it was necessary. So we set out on a journey to share this technology with anyone who wants it. With 70 different conferences, I've met with almost every single direct competitor to talk about this program within antitrust guidelines for sure. And we invited anybody who wants to join us or pursue their own solutions, but we would hope they chose number 2. And we worked with a NGO, the Recycling Partnership, to begin this pathway to circularity, to map how do you take a conventionally non-recyclable package and let it enter the circular economy. We're happy to say that the industry has been committing. So the 4 top toothpaste companies, us, Procter, Unilever, and Haleon, all committed to go recycler by 2025. They make 90% of the tubes in the US and 75% of the globe. 10 separate packaging suppliers have received APR certification. And the shift, there's some extruded tubes in there, some polypropylene, but most of them are targeting number 2 bottle, which is more traction than we hoped for, than we thought we'd get, but as much as we'd hoped for. So where we are, we've launched it in each division from 11 plants. We still have a little more to go. 70% of our volume in the US has transitioned. We will get 100% of our volume across the world by 2025. And this is not done from a design perspective. We continue to innovate, reducing the amount of plastic in it, improving the squeezability and user experience, because the economics and the scalability of this is what will drive this. So we are committed to doing that. And I never in my wildest dreams did I think that there would be news articles about us, reducing cost on packaging. It's like the most boring thing on the planet, but apparently other people care. And where I'll kind of hand the story back over to Jared is, so that's how we designed it. That's how we started converting the industry, but the consumer plays a big role. And there's a significant say-do gap. People want to do the right thing, but we need to make it easy for them to do it. So how do we ensure that this goes from being recyclable to recycled in practice and at scale? And one of the big challenges where we have a design solution is most people recycle in their kitchen, or they put it in their bin, or wherever they do their bottles. How do we build a habit that's not in the room where they normally do it? So with that, I'll hand it back over to Jared, and he'll bring us home. Wrong, sorry.
Thank you, Greg. So yeah, changing habits, changing behaviors, it's really difficult, obviously. This is obviously probably an automatism for most people, they go, brush your teeth, throw out the tube, unfortunately. So how can we start to drive some behavior change or some habit change? This is a small example. This is by no means is this groundbreaking, but it's just it's a step in the right direction, I think. So we have this interesting situation where we have two pieces of packaging for most cartons and tubes of toothpaste, right? There's a carton in this tube. That's because there's a reinforcement there, and unfortunately there's actually a commercial reality there for us, which we're working on in various parts around the world, namely UK, doing a great job around driving to a cartonless future. So there's a big opportunity there. Well, what we have inside a carton is a tube that looks exactly the same as a carton. So we have essentially a blank canvas to play with for messaging, for communication, to drive awareness. Right, so we actually had this crazy idea that we could take our top 4 brands in the top sub-brands rather in the US, and we could do a tube takeover. Right, we could use the canvas, use the tube as a place to communicate change, and ask some questions of people. Okay, so with our partners Design Bridge, shout out to collaboration, by the way. Don't know what that means. We studied a variety of different ways to bring this to life. Could be through pattern, could be through something cheeky or whimsical or slightly provocative, slightly straightforward, or even conversation, or even a call to action. And where we landed here is something really, really, really simple. Okay, just a straightforward call to action, still clearly, distinctively Colgate, right? I mean, no question that this is a Colgate product, but now it is a Colgate product asking me to do something, right? Telling me, imploring me to recycle me. Okay, so this is simply called Recycle Me. I'm guessing the video won't play either, so I won't try it. Okay, no video. Okay, it's a beautiful animation of the tube. Okay, so here are the tubes in all of their glory, all 4 of them. This is a award-winning packaging. We didn't do it to win awards, but I think it does matter because it's in the news, it's in conversation. We also created print campaigns to share the news, to help people understand how the system works. Some outdoor, of course, as well. So I'm going to sum it up with some closing thoughts here. I think this is important, I think. I'm going to sort of, when I think about why I go to work, why I work for Colgate-Palmolive, it's easy to think it's a commodity kind of company, right? It sells soap and it sells toothpaste. But when you really think about what that means, what is toothpaste and what's its role in humanity? Like, I think of it as a fundamental building block to the civilization we call humanity, right? And if we didn't have it, like electricity or like water, like the world would be a worse place, and it would be fundamentally, it would be unthinkable of a world without, our products. And so we cannot torpedo our business by just saying tomorrow we're just going to turn off the plastic tap, right? We need to be able to have a two-pronged approach where we are dual pathing both the today and the tomorrow. So that requires enormous amounts of collaboration, both inside our organization and outside our organization with partners. Requires enormous amount of empathy for each of the different stakeholders and their needs along that journey, along that supply chain. Super important, right? Good design is good business. That is about needing to create like a financially durable solution to this challenge, right? Because again, we cannot turn off the tap to all of those billions of people that rely on our products every single day. Okay, and so in summary, we are very much a progress over perfection. We are not waiting for perfection. We are, at the intersection of optimism and pragmatism. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, and we're going to start a panel discussion now.
Am I on? Okay. Thank you very much for that. I think we'll start with scale and impact. We'll stay on that for the moment. I'm going to turn it over to Alistair for my first question. How have you thought about understanding the business model to activate change with your stakeholders?
So I think it comes back to that conversation around users and empathy. And so in order for us to get the system to move, we can't just focus on the end user. We have to think about all the people all the way through that value chain up and downstream. Because if you don't answer their needs, you won't get the system to shift. And then within that, not just those people, but it also kind of talks to KPI design, and this is something that I think is really important. You have to have the right sets of KPIs in order for people, businesses, entities to move in the right way. If you don't have them balanced in the appropriate way, they're going to go after one thing, whether that's profit. And so you have to understand the sort of very different states of needs that those people have along that value chain. And once you've done that, I wouldn't say it makes it any easier, but it certainly makes it more possible.
Anyone else want to elaborate on that before we move on? Got it. He nailed it. Okay, he nailed it. Okay,
we talked beforehand.
All right, I'm gonna flip it over to Carmen now because I know that Eileen Fisher and your company has a pretty different approach, but still, I'm also thankful for the true definition of circularity being posed earlier today. So over to you, Carmen.
Yeah, I mean, wait, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, just talk about the approach for circular design at
yeah.
Eileen Fisher, and maybe how it's a little bit different than what the guys have been talking about.
Yes, of course. So this is the textile industry, right? I mean, for us, what it means circularity for Eileen Fisher is to like truly be responsible for everything that we're putting out in the world, and how can we capture those materials and put them as best as we can back into our, supply chains to be used as new materials, right? To produce new products. We are not near, like, I don't know any company or any clothing company that is like called truly circular, right? But how we're doing it is that we started a take back program, right, in 2009. We wanted to just, start asking internal employees, like, just bring back your clothing, and let's see how these garments are coming back to us and see what we can do with them. We started selling them at one of our stores in Irvington, New York, and then our customers love these secondhand garments. So in 2013, we asked our customers, right, to just bring back any garments that they have from Eileen Fisher that they no longer wanted. And since 2009, we've collected over 2 million garments. This sounds a lot, but it's actually not a lot, because we produce around 2 million garments a year, right? But what we have created is we created a system for us internally that we're able to resell these garments, right? And then repair, remanufacture, and fiber recycle, and also downcycle the garments that they're not resellable. And how we're doing this is like we started all of these internally, but now we have a lot of like partners that really support us on every step of the operation, because the only way for us to scale this is to really work outside of our doors. And the same way that brands have like supply, like factories and like, mills and dye houses to make their first life garments, we're helping shape a post-consumer supply chain that addresses these new circular models. So one of the things that you were saying before is like, how do we scale these? And how I'm looking at these in the textile industry is really you need to focus on 3 pillars, right? Design the product, design the infrastructure to address new models, right? And then design the technology to bring these materials back into the supply chains. And in the design, the material, like the product is like what Sean was saying, like us designers have the power to really affect what that garment is gonna be. Is it gonna be feedstock at the end of its wear life, or is it gonna go to the landfill, right? So what are the materials that you're making, like you're choosing as a designer to make into your garments? Are there like mono materials? Are they blended? What are the trims? What are the colors? Even the trends that you choose to, design these garments. So that has like a huge impact. Then what's the infrastructure to really collect those materials back? In packaging, I guess there's a lot of like, it's easier for you to throw like a recycle, like a plastic bottle into the recycle bin, but for clothing, it's very challenging, right? So we need infrastructure to collect, to sort, to do pre-processing and for those garments that they're going to go to resell, we need like single SKU, fulfillment. Like it's a whole like industry that we are early stages of building. And lastly, it's like the technology, designing the technology to actually capture those materials back into the supply chain. So I know this is like a lot of information, but that's kind of how.
That's perfect. And it's actually the perfect segue to my next question. I'm going to pass it over to Stephen to talk about the technology part of things.
Yeah, so I mean, this is really about bringing so many of these topics together and creating this enablement. We talked about what it takes to design the next generation of package. We talked about KPIs. We talked about regulations earlier. And the reality is, for change to happen in a way that's scalable and meaningful and actually drives impact, these things need to happen, in parallel. They need to line up. We need to be able to have regulations that line up to financial reality, commercial reality, maintaining brand differentiation, so on and so forth. And so our obsession over the last 4 or 5 years now has been about how do we enable that collaboration, firstly, but then how do we enable those insights that give you a true understanding at the atomic level of, your hundreds of brands, your thousands of locations, the huge production volumes involved, and how do you truly understand the impact of different polymers used, the different materials used, and then being able to understand that in the bigger context of the system. But critically, what are the actions you can take at both a global level, but then when you wind that down to markets? And when you see that practically, where do you start is probably the main question. So many different KPIs. And what we're seeing is the real kind of trigger points at the moment are the regulations that are hitting the ground now. Spain plastic tax has been a huge topic for many of our customers in recent weeks and months since the end of last year. We're seeing plastic taxes now proliferating in many locations, extended producer responsibility regulations proliferating. We're seeing, new EU packaging directive, the UN treaty. So this sort of proliferation of regulation we know is coming. It's happening now, affecting many of us, certainly around the table here. And so how do you then support the right design decisions? How do you then make sure that you've got insights on recyclability, recycled content, and how do you defend and have the confidence that data is valid? How do you be sure that what you understand to be recycled content is indeed true and has actually got evidence behind it through a complex supply chain? So these are all the topics that we're sort of working through at the moment. We launched a solution, SAP Responsible Design and Production, last year in order to be able to tackle this head on, working collaboratively with many of the brands in this room. I like to describe it as we're building the road at the moment the car is being invented, and that's kind of where we're all at, I think, at the moment. But we know there's a road that we need to travel on.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Do you have something you want to pipe in, Alistair?
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the things I think it gets interesting, data is just so important. You've got to drive a lot more of your design decisions off the data that you're seeing across that value chain. And it's an interesting thing for designers, because obviously intuition and empathy are those core kind of cables for designer, but there's that notion of bringing data more into that process, which I think isn't as restrictive as people would think. And then one of the other things I was just thinking as well is it's kind of interesting when you're talking about the different contexts around the globe, certainly as far as regulation is concerned, right? And one of the other things that I think is important is you can, there's that, what's the saying? The future's here, it's just not evenly distributed, right? And so it gets really interesting because you can use different parts of the world to think through scenarios, right, of what could happen, so that you can leverage that data and go, well, if this regulation happens, okay, we can do that. If it doesn't happen, we've still got to get to that goal. How do we do it? And so that notion of data-driven and scenario being combined with those typical, traditional designer skills is really powerful.
Yeah, the big topic too is getting ahead of some of these regulations too. If you guys are dealing with such massive supply chains, knowing that you have to build systems and technology around it to support change, you have to get started years in advance, I imagine. So can you talk to us a little bit about some of your failures or successes throughout that journey? Anyone? Greg, perhaps?
Yeah, there's been a lot of failures on the way.
I really wanted him to talk about his failures.
Yeah, God, part of it's aligning a brand identity to a sustainability push, and sometimes you get it wrong. If you've got a white soap in a clear bottle and you load it up with PCR in a tough market, and all of a sudden the white soap becomes gray, and the business tanks, you end up overreacting and going the other way. So making sure that we're able to have both sustainability initiatives that move the needle and are at scale, but also are brand pulled, because I have to do a lot of pushing. So ensuring that there's a brand pull to it's very important. And on the regulatory perspective, we craft our 2025 strategy, and we're beginning to craft our 2030. The coming regulations are an input into it, but they're largely, in my view, a lagging indicator. Those hit kind of after society's viewed something as needing to change. So thankfully, so far, our strategy has been aligned with where the regulations are heading.
I wanted to actually ask Alistair one more question. How have you been thinking about bringing the customer along in the journey when you're, let's say, introducing new sustainable design ideas or disruptive kinds of products to the market?
When you say customer, do you mean consumer or do you mean user? Or human being?
Which part do you want to answer?
I'm definitely more on the human being front, if not just life in general as being the focus. It gets tricky, and the gentleman from SAP was up on the stage before. Honestly, we see that challenge a lot because, same as Colgate, we're a scale company, and we address a lot of the people in the middle, and so their priorities around their purchases are different, rather than say people who are early adopters, who are maybe willing to make the pay more for certain things. So honestly, I think it just comes down to delivering overall a better experience, and that's what we drive to do. Whether it's in our core products, whether it's in reusable business models, providing some other value proposition. So it's not just about the sustainability. In some sense, the sustainability in that way just needs to happen in the background. It's not necessarily the conscious choice that people should be making. There's something else that goes into their more core set of needs that drives them to do that, and the sustainability is a benefit for everyone. And that's the strategy that we try and play to get it to be more of a, get over the chasm and get into that early mass adopter. So yeah.
One of the other things I was hearing from these guys is trying to make it a very seamless experience for the customer or the consumer, and helping them to come along the journey but not making a really big deal out of it. So I'm going to turn it over to Carmen, because I feel like at Eileen Fisher it's been front and center what needs to happen and what you guys have been doing over the years, and it's been quite obvious, and you've been taking big risks, so I want to hear about it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually want to build a little bit on Alistair. It's for us, sustainability. I know that Eileen Fisher is known for sustainability, but with our customers, right, we're known for the design aspect of it, the quality of the materials, the luxury of them. And that's what the customers come at us, the simple dressing, right? And that's what Eileen is her main focus. The sustainability comes, it's like part of the company, it's embedded on us. So when we tell, people often tell, you guys are so shy about everything that we do. It's like, yeah, we actually don't say everything that we do, but I just want to, it is so important for you to offer the product, and then the other part comes. For us, I mean, it's very seamless, the program that we offer to our customers, and I think that the success of our program is because of our customers. If they're not bringing back their garments, because we only give them $5 for the garment, it can be literally like a worn out pant, totally torn out, or it can be a brand new cashmere sweater that they didn't wear. We give them a $5 coupon, and it's very easy for them because they can return it to any of our stores. No questions asked. If they come with a bag of 40 pieces, we don't even open the bag, right? It's just we trust them, so we make it seamless to them. And then that's one of the reasons that, again, we have a very successful program, and everything that we do is embedded in our core values, which is trying to do better for the planet.
It seems like you guys took seriously the extended manufacturer responsibility before it was cool.
I guess so, yeah.
Can I just pick up on something?
Please.
Something I think is really interesting is like the role of humility getting in the way sometimes, and it's kind of, so for us, I think we're pretty, historically we've been quite a humble company, and it wasn't until, so I joined the company in 2016, I think early 2017, 2018, we started thinking about brand Colgate. We actually did some archetype work, and we realized that brand Colgate is a hero brand, right, because it fights and protects on behalf of people. And that was this huge unlock that we have this we need to be front-footed about this conversation. So when we started talking about the role in, with recyclable tube and sustainability, like our role is to lead in this and to be front-footed, because if not us, then who? And I think, so sometimes humility can be a drag, and you need to just stand up and do the right thing despite it maybe, be more courageous, I think. And we're learning that we have, I think the voice of our voice in this conversation is needed.
And also, I think, I want to mention, the collaboration part of it and the transparency, right? I think that has been so important for us at Eileen Fisher. She's very humble enough to say, these are, my doors are open. We mentor so many brands. We share our supply chain. We share how we're doing things. I mean, I keep saying this in every panel, and then I get scared because I get so many tours. But our doors are open to any industry who wants to come and tour our facility to see how we're doing things, right? Because she knows that she can't change this industry on her own, right? It's the question of it's I'm gonna change, but if no one changes, then there's no point. So I think transparency, humility, and just being very collaborative is what's gonna actually make a systemic change in our industries, right? And not only for textile, but for any other industry.
If you want to go far, go together, right? That's at the end of the day what it's all about.
Yeah, I want to bring it back to data for a second, bring Stephen back into the fold here, because it's not to be underestimated how much information there is, how much information you're dealing with, and can you talk to us a little bit about how that information is benefiting your customers or consumers?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's simultaneously the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge. Certainly in terms of the people we're speaking to in many of the businesses. Having getting to grips with everything from how to pay a tax return for a plastic tax submission at one level, and how to steer a business in delivering its ESG metrics at the sort of highest level, and everything in between is a challenge. And I think our customers around the world, I think are beginning to kind of really variously get to grips with this now. We're seeing these sort of hotspots of real momentum where, I'd say in the last 6 to 12 months, Spain and France and to some extent the UK and to some extent Germany have really started to accelerate. And I think now what we're starting to see is actually North America is really starting to move forward now. We're seeing new extended producer responsibility coming online in California and Maine and Oregon and Colorado, and we're seeing a lot of incoming questions from brands that are trying to make sense of that and really understand, okay, so what if the French regulations where we've got eco-modulation and bonus and malus and all these sort of great sort of policy innovations, what if they were to be applied in California? What would that look like? And how would that impact my business? And so being able to kind of help brands sort of run the line here and understand these different scenarios is key to unlocking. But it's really, I won't say pointless, but it becomes very difficult if you haven't got that underlying bedrock of data and insight on how these complex packaging scenarios exist in a dynamic world. We need to understand this not just at a point in time, but in the context of complex supply chains and logistics, understanding what has been imported versus what hasn't, all of these different factors combine. And most importantly, it's not just a question of packaging. This sits within a context of a bigger system. There's trade-offs that have to happen in order to be able to make decisions. And so, we're looking at this from the point of view of, well, plastics and packaging is critical, but what's the impact on the food context then? What's the impact in terms of other materials? And as you cross industries, you almost bring every other material flow into consideration. So it's really how to address at the sort of micro level as well as that global context.
And we have enormous amounts of data. Data is not the problem. Like, we have too much data. We have lakes and lakes of data. The challenge is connecting the data and making it meaningful, right? And creating intelligence from the data. That's where I think we've really leaned into lately. But knowing what the right business problem is to solve, being strategic about what you're going after, but then creating intelligent systems that are able to use the data, of course, as a bedrock. But it's that intelligence, the so what part, I think, is still difficult for us.
Yeah, for the last few years, I've spent a lot of time on organizational capability around sustainability. And hands down, in the last year, the most important hire I made was a data analyst in my team. Like, that is, we've brought in people from the recycling industry, people with econ backgrounds, but I was like, we don't know how to read this data at all. So, I have a guy that does that full time now.
And that's the key power that design brings. To your point, you've got oodles of data. How do you connect it all to get an overall picture? And how do you build a narrative around it that actually gets people involved so they can understand it? And the data visualization, the data narratives, the data synthesis is so important.
Both internal and external, right?
Both, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit more about how you've done that and getting all of your stakeholders involved. You're the only one that works on food here on the panel, so I'm especially interested.
Make that food?
Oh, okay. Food for people. Sorry. Your job is important, though, because packaging is the only thing that doesn't get spit in the sink, right? So, go ahead.
So the question was how to bring stakeholders along?
Yeah, and just like you said, the visualization of that information and the data.
I mean, again, it goes back to the idea of understanding what their need is. People in our system, everyone's got a PDR, everyone's got things that they're getting assessed against that they need to deliver, right? So, I mean, in a very sort of crude, superficial sense, you can see that as their needs. Obviously, they're human beings and they have other needs as well, but from a business point of view, they're quite important. And then so you have to look at the data and say, okay, well, how do we use this data to tell a story that's going to make them understand how it's going to help them achieve their goals and answer their needs? And then they just do that in a very clear and compelling way. And it sounds very simple. It's very difficult to do. It could be very challenging, honestly, to, I would say, honestly, PepsiCo is at the pretty much the beginning of its data journey to get it really stitched up. So sometimes, honestly, I feel like my team and I are like detectives going around a very, very big organization hunting stuff down to get it to be able to kind of tell that narrative and to really, everyone can have a general understanding of the challenges, but when you can really make those challenges clear and really dimensionalize them in relation to that person's goals, that's when something starts to happen.
You see the light bulb go off.
And that's where empathy comes back in, right?
Yeah.
Right? And I think so data's a form of, you need data, you don't need data, but we use data to drive decisions with confidence. Right? But there's other ways you can do that. And I think roles as designers, storytelling is a really effective way to drive influence as well, right? And data-backed storytelling is even better. Right? So at the end of the day, we're just trying to drive change and understanding the motivations of the different stakeholders is the empathy piece. And I think as designers, we have a massive role to play in that. But I would say the caveat is that it's not fake empathy. Like I think designers sometimes leverage empathy as a superpower, like we're user-centric. But tell me, give me your insight and then let me go away and noodle in a black box and I'll come back and give you the answer. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about fake empathy. I'm talking about true co-creation and collaboration with genuinely shared goals. And I think design as an industry can learn to get better in that space, because I think empathy sometimes is misused as a word.
I want to thank this panel. Very interesting. Please give them a round of applause.